Hi everyone, Agnes here. I have got a really interesting story for you. And firstly, before we go into that, I'm going to introduce Nathan. Hello, Nathan.
Hey, Agnes. Hey, everybody watching.
Nathan, can you just say where you are in the world for the viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am in Northern Virginia, which is about, and my specific location is about 25 minutes outside of Washington, D.C.
Cool. Wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
And that will be important for the end of this interview. Nathan has got an amazing before and after story in regards to dream job, money, and going from things totally not working in that area and then things hatching into something really wonderful. And what he does and what he is doing, he loves very much. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Nathan. Can you
Yeah,
give us a bit of a what was going on that the whole card house fell over for you in this area? Can you give us the pre-story?
absolutely. So I left the military in pursuit of going back to college, and I was going to pursue a career in acting. And so at this time, I was really like heavily praying, like, hey, God, where do you want me to go? Like with school and everything. Like I was really trying to find the right place. And so found the school, graduated with honors, and then time to get into the workforce. And it was like absolutely nothing like I expected. I was like, I'm from the military, I've got a degree, like all these great things going for me. This is going to be a piece of cake. Completely false. It was a total struggle. And so for a long duration, I found myself as a professional dog walker trying to make ends meet just to be able to survive, which, as we've discussed, ultimately ended up with me living in a small room in someone else's basement trying to figure out what was going on with my life. And so in this time, it was like, I know God was orchestrating everything because it went from like all these plentiful dog walks and auditions for acting where I could easily be there for these auditions that happened at random times. And then it was like everything just stopped. It was like nothing was working. There were no more walks, no more auditions, no more desire for the acting thing. And I was like, wow, I have this amount of savings and I've got to survive. And so I really pressed into starting to look for self-improvement. I found you during that time. I found, like a deeper faith in God and like was really just like between watching your videos and between like trying to like pray to God of like what he would want me to do. Those were the things that kind of helped to get me through this like strange period where it was like just it's like the twilight zone. It was like the way everything it was like everything stopped. It was almost like
Mm.
that was the time where things were about to change, but I didn't know it yet because I wasn't to the other side of everything. And so I found myself so many days where I would just be in this room. I didn't have anything to do, and I would pray, I would watch your videos, I would go, to the library and read books. Like I was doing anything and everything, like applying for jobs. I even applied for a job at the zoo to be an elephant caretaker. I'm like, I don't I don't have no experience with animals, but if God wants me to be an elephant caretaker, I can be a caretaker. Just that's the place I was.
Did you get
Um,
that? Did you get that job?
no, I didn't even get a
No.
call. No, they probably just like threw my resume right out to the trash. And so, yeah, like there were a few mornings where I was on my face, I was like on my knees, on my face, on my bed, just like, God, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know where you're leading me, but I
Mm.
know you're going to provide, and I'm not scared. I have peace. I know that this is going to work out. And I just stayed in that place of faith. And, again, watching your videos as well, and I had reached out to you for an email at this time because I had, just come out of a relationship and was looking to manifest her back at the same time. And I was adding in the stuff about, making six figures plus, adding in job, like so these other things that I was also attempting to manifest in addition to the relationship at the time. And
Mm.
then I remember hearing so distinctly one day in my spirit, it wasn't like an audible voice, but it was definitely like a pushing and an urging that I needed to go to church that day. I needed to go. And funny enough, like a few weeks before, I had gone to an event to see a band, Elevation Worship, and they were like one of my favorite bands. And it was hosted by this specific church that just so happened to be, a few miles away from where I was living in that small room. And I went to the church. And if you've ever gone to church and it's like the big auditorium, it's in between services, there's nobody in there hardly. And so I could have sat anywhere in this particular auditorium. And I stopped and I said, okay, God, where do you want me to sit? And so it was like, okay, go over to this one particular row of seats. And knowing this was my first time, I sat on the very end and I was like, as soon as this ends, I'm going to get out of here as quickly as I can, right? Because I don't want to have awkward conversations with a bunch of people I don't know. And so I start to sit down and then I feel in my spirit, no, you need to move into the middle of the road. There's somebody else who's going to sit here. And I'm like, this is crazy, but okay, I'll follow, I'll go. And I went to the middle, praise and worship, the message, and then all of a sudden, after service was over, I feel a tapping on my shoulder. And I had noticed that there were a few people that actually sat, two people specifically who sat at the very end of the row, right where I was planning to sit. I didn't think anything of it. And the lady taps me on the shoulder and she starts to engage me in really thoughtful conversation. And I have no idea who this woman was at the time. And then she starts to ask me questions, probing questions. And she's like, hey, what are you doing with your life? Like, where where are you at? Like, what are you doing with your occupation? And I said, well, it's funny you should ask because I'm in between things right now and I'm kind of looking for a different thing. And then she says, have you ever thought about going into real estate? And I was like, funny you should ask because for the last year and a half, there's been at least four people who've also asked me to go into real estate, but I've said no every single time because of different life circumstances. And so I said, yeah, I guess I'd finally be open to going into real estate. It's almost like the story of Jonah and the whale, where Jonah was running away from the calling that God had on his life, and so finally the whale eats him and then spits him up on the shore. And that's where I was. I was the nasty spit up on the shore whale guy with the gross stuff all over me, and she was tapping me on the shoulder with a life raft. Uh, she said, "Well, funny, my husband who was sitting over here." In the very seat that I was planning to sit in originally, he was sitting in that seat. She said he owns a real estate company and they're looking to hire agents. Funny,
No way.
yes, yes way. And funny enough, that very company was a company that I was like a week before doing walks, professional dog walking, and I saw this particular sign and I stopped in the front of that sign and something captured me in that moment and I felt in my heart it was just like this curiosity. What would it like to be working with that company? And it was
No.
that very company. And
Wow.
yeah, wow. And so she said, well, she's like, I'd really love to introduce you to him. I think you've got a really great personality. And I don't know how she did it, picked it up, in the 10 minutes that we were chatting, but she really had a strong sense. And so I said, sure, yeah, let's set up a meeting. I had already applied to your husband's company a week before and I didn't hear anything back. So she opened the door and then
Wow.
she opened the door and then I met with the husband. I had to meet with other managing partners for the company. And it was I think it was like 2 months. I mean, like just the interview process was extremely rigorous because this real estate company is like one of the tops in the entire country of the United States. And it's almost like going from not playing sports at all to going to playing in the Super Bowl in your very first, go around, which is, again, only God could have done a miracle like that and work things out like that. And so I'm going to circle back around to how you tie into this too, okay? Because it's also
Yeah.
important to the listeners out there too, because I know they're listening to your videos and I know how it is being on the other side of the interview. Um, and so I interviewed with them. Then they said, okay, we're going to bring you on. They didn't know in what capacity they were going to bring me on, but they were going to bring me on. And I remember on Yes, I remember driving away, going to a friend's house after that interview where they told me they were going to hire me. I just knew in my heart, I was like, my life is about to radically change. I just knew, I knew the manifestation, the prayers, everything was coming, and I could feel it in my heart, in my
Mm,
spirit. Just the inward knowing was just like so strong. And I had so much joy and just exhilaration that things were about to change for the dramatic. And so I remember that I had reached out to you about the email. You had sent me the one email because at the time that was all I knew I could afford. I couldn't afford coaching like we've been doing now.
yeah.
In that one email, in addition to all the prayers and all the knowing and the peace from God, it was like hearing your voice and hearing your message spoken back to me from the questions that I had asked you in the email that I sent to you. There was a reassurance in there as well, and I meditated on the things that you said, and I could feel this joy also coming from you that was coming into me and giving me more joy in my own. And then again, with not just with the job that I love, and I'm having a lot of fun getting to meet a bunch of people who are in certain situations in their life, and it's a small window where they're
Mm,
going through death, they're going through divorce, they're going through a new marriage, or they're going through all these different reasons why they have to sell their house and move to another house. And I get to be a part of that story for a short
yes.
amount of time. And so that's, in a
Yeah.
way, it's almost like a ministry to me that I get to be there for
Mm,
people. And
mm,
it's really cool. And so to go back to your place and where you tied into this, the joy that I received from your message. And if anybody's listening to this, reaching out to Agnes to get coaching, even if it's
mm.
just an email, I assure you, if you're like me, which I'm sure a lot of people are, it will be very helpful. You'll get a lot of really good from it. Like I know I have been very fortunate to do one-on-one coaching with you recently, so just the progression. It seems like every time I'm starting to come out of a relationship or something's happening with relationships, then on Yes, Joe shows back up in my life. But I wouldn't want to do it without her. And
Mm.
if you're thinking about coaching, I would definitely recommend it, or at least joining one of her courses because they're all extremely helpful. And surprisingly enough, not only did I get the amazing dream job, and not only has my financial situation dramatically changed, like night and
Mm.
day, that relationship that I was trying to manifest ended up coming back to me. And at the time, even though we're not together now, for a multitude of different reasons, probably a lot of my own stupidity, but uh, even though we're not together now, at that particular time when she did come back, she said a lot of the things that I had been trying to manifest and the things that I was hoping to hear from her and the love that I was looking for. So the other thing I would urge your listeners, because I know you've talked to me a lot about this, is like the importance of continuing the self-love
Mm.
even after we get the thing that we want. Because like without the self-love, it's easy to fall back into our neediness. It's easy to fall back into the patterns of the things that we did before that may have caused some of the issues. And
Mm.
maybe it won't, but having that self-love is really important. And I'm not saying this because Agnes is paying me to say this. I'm truly saying it because it really works. Do it. Do
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So that's
Wow.
in a nutshell.
Wow. You know what blows me away is that moment where you were in that tiny room just saying to God, I mean, when everything didn't look great, you still said, look, God, I know you've got something for me. I have trust and faith. I mean, often people say, it's a prayer of begging at that point. Help me. What the heck's going on? I'm freaking out. It's all that kind of stuff. But you just
Right.
went, no, I am going to have trust and faith even when there's nothing. And just that whole go to church today, you go there. No, I want to sit here. No, you're not to sit there. I mean, the fact that you can hear so clearly. I mean, when God talks to you, is it a feeling? Is it a voice? Is it how do you know what you're getting? How do you receive those messages? Because I know a lot of people are going to want to know that.
That's a very loaded question because it's like it's not just one specific thing. And I think like the biggest thing for me is like when I stay close to the presence of God, when I spend time with God and my heart is in the right place, I think it's like it's the heart posture that I think God sees for me particularly. I can't speak for how
Mm.
he speaks to everybody, but when my heart is in the place of just like being like David, where he's like after God's own heart, when I'm a man after God's own heart, I notice that God, he can give me signs, like he might show me a picture or something that keeps showing up, or a specific phrase where I keep hearing it, or it
Yes.
will just be like an internal knowing,
Yeah. Okay. So it's
or
different ways at different times. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then I think like for me specifically, I've been so, so, so incredibly fortunate to have people around me who, again, they're also pursuing God and they have,
Mhm.
their own prophetic nature where sometimes they just reach out to me and they just say like, hey, I feel like you're going through this and then we can pray together, and then I feel
Mm.
like, where two or three are gathered in his name, there is he in the midst, and it's like
Yeah.
these specific things that show me that like time and time again, not just this one specific instance, and this is not meant to be like, hey, come to the altar and accept Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior. That's not what I'm saying. Not what I'm trying to do here. But if you want to, you can reach out to me on Yes, I'll give you my contact information. But no, there's been too many things that are beyond coincidence that have happened when I am in the right place, when I am truly pursuing God, that I cannot say
Mm.
that He is not real and He does not exist. And like
Yeah.
I know for some it's really hard to grasp, and I understand. There's still so
Mhm.
many things I don't understand, but that was a really long answer to your question. I hope it answered it correctly.
Yeah, no, it's good because that was really the bit that I mean, your story is so it's like you're being led the whole way and
Yeah.
you're hearing the prompts. It's like you got an earpiece.
I
It's
wish it was a little louder sometimes.
it's brilliant. Okay, so let me ask you a few questions.
Yeah.
You got the job
Hmm.
and then you started it. You're still living
Hmm.
in the little room. So what how
Yeah.
did you get out of the little room into your own place? Like how long up? Well, firstly, how long after you met these people in church did you start working for them?
Yeah.
That's the first question. And then from that, how long till you got your own place?
Yeah. Awesome questions. So from the time that I met Lori, who is my boss's wife, until I got the job, it was roughly 2 months.
Okay, so not
Yeah.
long.
Not very long, but it feels
No.
like an eternity when you don't have a job, right?
Yeah, for sure. But you know
And
what?
then, yeah,
Before you answer that, there is such a big component of surrender in that what you described that day in that little room and with your I know you've got something for me and I'm going to trust and have faith. There
yeah,
was a it's like you had to rise up in your consciousness to say that and surrender at the same time. I think that is the magic key that it's the golden key that opens the door.
yeah. And I think in addition to the surrender, I think something else that I didn't quite mention was the importance of keeping my mind in the loving place. It was like I
Mm,
was focused on listening to things that were uplifting and positive. I was focused on like really trying to stay in a place of good vibes and like not to be woo woo. I'm not like out hugging trees while I'm doing all this or doing walking around with no shoes on or anything like strange. But like
yeah.
I think that the things that we listen to, the things that we meditate on, the things that we choose to entertain with our time will definitely, show themselves in our 3D realm, right? And
Yeah.
so if you're out there and you're not doing that, I might encourage you to, focus on trying to do things that are more uplifting, more positive, and really like
Mm,
spend time in that,
yes.
because it's like the story. It's like a parable, I think, that says that there's two wolves in each one of us. There's the good one and there's the bad one, and depending on which one you feed is going to be the stronger one. And so I think
Mm,
that there's a lot of value and merit in that. And so to get back to the two questions that you had, the second answer was that's also another God thing. And then ultimately from that thing, then God opened another door eventually for me to own my first house. And so, it's like exactly what you were saying. It's like God consistently shows up in my life in these ways. So from the time that I went from that small room, I feel like that was an additional 4 to 6 months that I was in that small room, like doing the real estate thing, like trying to pray for like what's next, where am I going to go? And then one of my colleagues randomly one day was like, "Hey, I've got this rental opportunity. It's a 1 bedroom condo, but I thought of you when I got this opportunity." And so I was like, "Yeah, cool." And I went to look at it, and it was like going from that one 300 square foot bedroom to a 700 square foot condo that was my own, where I could be on my own.
Yeah.
It felt like I had gone to a mansion almost, it was like this
Yes. Yeah,
great
of course.
release. And I was so grateful for it. And that's another component. I think gratitude is really important.
Yeah.
And then from there, it was like another 3 years where I was like praying, like, God, will I ever own my own home? Will I ever have my own home? Until it was like this one particular day, they, every Tuesday we do a meeting where we get together and we talk about houses that we have coming on the market. And
Yeah.
I remember the house that living in now, they brought it up on the screen and something in my heart leaped at the very moment that I
Ah,
saw it. And I was like, that's mine. And
wow.
funny enough, three other colleagues at the exact same moment I felt that thing said, we felt like that was for you.
Really?
Yes. And then all of the things that had to happen for me to qualify for the financing, for me to actually get my offer accepted by the seller off market. So they took a price that was ridiculously low. Another house within 6 months sold on that very same street for almost 200,000 above what I actually bought my house for. So I got an
Wow.
amazing price. I got this beautiful house, and there were some additional incentives that were offered to me that weren't offered to everybody else, where I was able to pay for a lot of renovations in my house without actually coming out of my own pocket for it. So I kept a lot of my own money in my own pocket, and essentially someone else paid for my renovation cost.
No way.
Yes, it
You
was
mean
awesome.
the person that sold it to you or some third party?
No, a third party.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow, what an
yeah,
amazing. That's when you know the things are right. When you get
yeah,
that exactly like what you say, it kind of it has it hits you in the chest.
yeah,
It does. And it
yeah.
doesn't matter whether it's a house, a job, a relationship. It's that.
Right.
That's how you know.
But I would also like to say, like, yes, all this stuff is great, all the money is great, but like the greatest thing that has escaped me recently, and I've only learned through the hardship of losing, the 10-year relationship that helped me manifest back and that came back.
Yeah.
And losing her, there was a lot of growth in the loss. And so it was like the most important thing I think for people is gratitude.
Hmm.
And even more important than that is love.
Yeah.
Like having love is so much more valuable than having the money. And the money's great, don't get me wrong. Gives me a
Yeah.
lot of choices, but like
Yeah.
not having love causes the house, causes the money, causes the car, all these nice things. It's not as valuable as that thing. And even though I'm grateful for it all and I still praise God for it all, it's
Yeah.
like I would much prefer to have someone to love and be happy with someone to love and not have all of these great things. But
Yeah.
if I could have love in addition, that would be
Yeah.
awesome too. But
But you know
yeah,
what, Nathan? It's like you've prepared, no, what's the word? You've feathered your nest. It's like the nest is ready for now the relationship. So, ladies, you're watching Nathan. Yes, he is single. We said we would, since, as we said, Nathan, 83% of my channel is women. So, it is such a wonderful thing because you have feathered your nest. It's like
yeah,
for a man who wants a mature, loving relationship, you have got your nest is ready now. And I agree with you. The relationship, I think, I would say the same as you. A relationship trumps all these other things. because at the end of the day, it's cuddling up at night with someone and you don't even need to speak and you fall asleep together, and then you come home from work and you share your day. That is priceless. It really is. And I look forward, and I am going to pre-pave this, a second interview with you, and we
To
are
me,
going to share it's unhatched today, but we will share a beautiful relationship story for our part two, if you are willing to come back again.
I don't know. I need to think about it.
Yes, food
Yeah,
for thought.
absolutely.
Food for thought. It is.
Wouldn't it be additionally cool if like I was sitting, well, I wouldn't be sitting here, I'd be sitting in my normal place, but if there
Yes,
was that right woman right here doing the interview with me, and then that
yes,
would be pretty cool too.
yeah, like the ones that you said that you watched on my channel, and they were inspiring for you to
Yeah,
watch the couple. It's good to hear one side of a story, but to hear them together and what they both learned and how they found each other, I think
yeah,
that is it's a very precious moment. So
yeah.
absolutely brilliant story. And you hadn't told me some of those bits, so I was looking forward to hearing. I had bits of your story, but this has stitched it all together. And it is so, I just love your relationship with God and how it's not stagnant. It's moving. It's got like energy towards God and you. It's like it's moving in both directions. I think that's really special. But it is, you take one step towards God and God will take a step towards you. And this story really, really shows that. So are you still friends with the people the little room? No,
No, no,
is that in the same state, or it was somewhere else?
no, it's in the same state, but that was just more of like, hey, I found your listing on Facebook Marketplace, and thank you for
Ah,
allowing me to stay in your house.
I see. Okay, so it was a wonderful stepping stone, a golden link in the chain.
Yeah, exactly.
Fabulous. Ah,
Mm.
what a brilliant story. Is it sometimes when you look back, it's a bit surreal looking at where you were and the whole progression? I mean, that one thing, go to church today.
Yeah,
I mean, holy heck, what a fork in the road. Imagine if you'd gone, nah, I don't feel like doing
probably still be living in that small room today.
Yes. Yeah. To,
Yeah,
Florence Scovel Shinn talks about asking for leads and hunches. Well, you got a massive lead and hunch that day, and you heard it and followed it. And I think those are the golden moments. You get something, but you don't kind of go, nah. You go, what's the point of that? You could argue with it, but you just went, okay, I'll go. And then I want to sit here. No, you're not sitting there. You're sitting over here. Like all those pieces you heard at every point, you heard the next piece. And
yeah.
I just think your powers of listening to God, that's a quite a profound skill. It is.
I don't always get it right. Like there are plenty of times, like recently, like my one of my accountability partners, Isaac, he's amazing man of God. And like he gave me some really tough medicine, some real tough love because I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear it, and he gave it to me anyway because he knew I needed it. And then the very next day, I felt like then I got the confirmation and the softening from God, where it's like, okay, even though he was saying something that you didn't want to hear and you didn't want to accept it, this really was for me, and it helped me to recorrect and get my mind right
Yeah.
back into the right place so I could be more receptive and that my heart was in the right place.
Mm, beautiful.
Yeah,
Very nice. Well, are you willing to answer questions in the thread? Because I'm sure there's going to be some
yeah,
when I
absolutely.
upload this. Yeah, wonderful. And
Yeah,
yeah, I wow, I think this is such a beautiful, because there's so many parts. Yes, it's dream job. Yes, it's money. Yes, it's a house. Yes, but it's so much more than that. There's so much spiritual food as the foundation of this story, and it all kind of dovetails together so nicely. I'm so glad I trusted my intuition to ask you, because I was thinking, what? Because I got a message. I was saying to Nathan before we started recording, I was laying in bed and I'd said to God the day before, you know what? I haven't done many interviews lately. And, I'm, let me know which way I should go. Who should I ask? What kind of topics? And then I saw your name, Nathan, across you know, the screen of my mind. And I was still half waking up. And it was like, oh, okay. And then I remembered that one little thing that you'd said to me about living in that tiny room and how you'd gone from that to this. And we were talking about other things in the coaching session that had nothing to do with what we were talked about, but it was that sentence that came to me that morning. So,
Yeah.
woohoo!
Woo!
Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much, Nathan. That was honestly, that is so uplifting. It really is. It's a beautiful story.
thank you.
Have you
Glory
got
to God.
anything you want to say to people before we sign off? Anything at all?
I want to say glory to God. And ladies, if you're out there, hit me up.
You better look out. You're gonna get inundated.
Hey, I enjoy meeting new people.
Yes, exactly. Especially people that are like-minded, that do their personal development and connect to God. That's
Yeah,
just two halves of a nut that makes for wonderful conversations.
yeah,
Thank you,
absolutely.
Nathan. I'm going to
Thank you, Agnes.
say, do you want to say goodbye? And then I'll say goodbye and we'll say bye in private.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that and got some inspiration from it. I'll see you in the next video.